I was about to swear, but I'm going to say holy smokes. And I bloody love rugby. What a weekend. I don't want to say that I told you so and that I called it, but I did call it. I knew there was going to be some shocks at the weekend. I didn't want to call the Italy-Scotland one, but I did have a sneaky feeling they could do it. And we will talk about the Italian job on another clip that we'll put out. This is all about England. My goodness me. I had England winning by 4, right? So I threw it out there. What are you on about, Jim? You're an idiot. Jamie Heaslip. England will only beat Ireland if Ireland go down to 13, 14 men. Well, actually, England went down to 14 men because they had so many injuries that they couldn't bring anyone back on. And they played the last part of the game with 14 men, and they have just beaten Ireland. What a game. I'm absolutely buzzing. I don't even know where to start when we talk about it, but I did tell you so. So let's start with that. As a quarter Englishman, I've got friends in that team. I do the rugby pod with my partner in crime, Andy Goon. He said that a win for England could even be a loss in Ireland winning by 18 points. There was an 18-point margin. If England came within that, he was happy as a former England player. No, I had England winning. I thought they had enough in the bank. I thought there was enough quality from what I've seen in recent weeks. The game plan on the rugby pod, I went through the makeup of the team, how that could potentially look with Alex Mitchell. I said Marcus Smith, but George Ford, Marcus Smith obviously came on and dropped the goal. Ollie Lawrence or Manu Tuilagi, Henry Slade, Tommy Freeman, massive, absolutely massive in that England win. George Furbank, come off the hour, come off the man. Whenever he's put an England jersey on, he's just fronted up every single time. I actually am a big Freddie Stewart fan, and I would try and fit them both in. I don't know, can George Furbank play a bit of 10? Maybe not now because Marcus Smith, what he did when he came on. Emmanuel Faessler on the right wing. Again, something that we've talked about before, but you look at the profile of that team in the lead up to the game. George Martin, Ollie Chesham, Ellis Genge, Maro Itoje, Ben Earl, Sam Underhill. Mate, Jamie George, you've got some quality players. I was going to say we then, like I'm fanboying, but as an England fan, you must be absolutely buzzing. I think you look at the pressure that England team were under going into it. Steve Borthwick, all the stuff going around the media, the lack of passion, the lack of ambition that they've had. I weren't seeing any of that. So it wasn't me just throwing up a load of hype saying, England, they are much better. I've got friends in the team, so, they're going to be all right. I genuinely saw this game as a winnable game for England because of the performances that I've seen come in. I saw that first half against Scotland, but it all stems back to the World Cup against South Africa in that semi-final. The way that they played in that game against the world champions, nearly beat them. They didn't, but wow, bloody love rugby. And we're not talking about the ref. Unless you're Irish, you might talk about the ref. There's nothing I can pick out from Amash Kelly that I'm thinking there's anything to talk about the ref. There's not. I mean, Ireland, a few things when you actually break down their performance. The 6-2 bench was clearly an issue for them, losing Calvin Nash and Kieran Frawley after that, like 2 HIAs, I think it was. And obviously Jamison Gibson Park having to move to the wing, who actually looked quite good on the wing as well. But this is all about England. Like the way that they started the game, the ferocity, the early try for Ollie Lawrence in the corner, George Furbank, worth people at Twickenham thinking he was going to put the up and under in. No, runs direct at the Ireland line. Lovely little pass to Tommy Freeman, sits down Calvin Nash, hands at the line, in the corner, Ollie Lawrence. And that was the start, right? That was the start of how England were going to play. They did that against Scotland the week before. Was it the week before or a couple of weeks before? A couple of weeks before. And they took their foot off the gas. And that's what it looked like it was going to happen in this game. They thought, well, Ireland, best team in the world, unless you're South African, and you'll say that they're not the best team in the world. But to a man, I thought they were brilliant. Some of the performances, standout performances. Ben Earl for me now is one of the best players in the world. Like has been for a while. I'm worried about hyping up mates. I'm worried about hyping up former teammates. That performance today or yesterday, whenever you're watching this, or 3 days ago, or if you're watching this a year later, that performance against Ireland was phenomenal, was absolutely world class. If there was a Lions tour tomorrow, he'd be on playing 6, 7 or 8, put him wherever you want across the back row. He was up against the best back row in the world, the best balanced back row in the world. You could argue Peter O'Mahony maybe wouldn't fit in that, but nonetheless, a top-class player. But Ben Earl was absolutely phenomenal. Sam Underhill as well for me. Quietly, very good this week. George Martin makes a huge difference. I thought Maro Itoje as well. But the pressure that England were under going into that game was what kind of stood out for me and how they performed. George Ford, I thought he looked very good when he was attacking with the ball. Struggled. I think he missed 3 kicks, 1 penalty, 2 conversions, which was 7 points. And you're thinking, well, actually, is that going to cost England later on? But the big turning point, you could argue, was the yellow card to Peter O'Mahony. That's where the England score came off the back of that. And the Marcus Smith drop goal at the end with penalty advantage, just to put themselves back in that position after Elliot Daly going for the long distance penalty. I think if you're an England fan, you've seen enough now. You've seen enough. Actually, I was on a group chat with my mates who are English. They're fully English. I'm a quarter English. But I was on a group chat with them and I said, it's important that rugby has a good England team. What does that mean? Size of the union, the pool of players, the constant changing that they've had. Everything's been about Ireland. Ireland, the best team in the world. They're going to walk the Six Nations, which they kind of have done. And they could have won the game against England. But for me, very, very impressed. Very impressed with England. Alex Mitchell played very well. Danny Kerr, when he came on, big shout to him, 100 caps. Especially to get 100 caps, you think about Danny Kerr's career in the lead-up. Got dropped by Eddie Jones, challenged him after one of the games. I think it was against Japan, where they didn't play that well, or they might have lost. I can't remember. It's completely irrelevant now. But for him to get 100 caps and following the footsteps of England greats to get to that number is no easy feat. He came on, did really well. He actually kicked the ball when England were in multi-phase towards the end of the game. I was like, what are you doing? It's a ridiculous decision. But it actually worked out that it wasn't a ridiculous decision because they got the ball back and they put themselves in a position to put huge amounts of pressure. Channing Cunningham South was wicked when he came on, picked up a nasty injury, but the way that he was carrying the ball back at the line, you could see the England players were peed off. You could see, listen to Marcus Smith and more so Danny Kerr, who was more transparent with his interview after the game. He could hear the noise in the media, and you think about former England players, Goody, calling out their team, saying they're not good enough, that, Ireland are going to walk this, that the game plan's not good enough. It's Steve Borwick, and is he the right man to take the helm? I believe I've seen enough of that England team and the players and the quality that they've got in the Premiership. So have England shocked the world? That's the thumbnail. England have shocked the world. I think they have. I genuinely think they have. And I sit here with a wry smile because I called it. Because I genuinely thought in the lead-up we were going to see a few shocks at the weekend. So it'll be interesting. We're putting this out. It is a little bit different just to see what the interaction's like. As England fans, are you happy? Of course you're happy. But are you happy with the makeup? Would you change anything for the game against France? What does success look like for England? Are you happy with Borthwick? Because if I was you, I would be. I'm happy with the team now. We go back Emmanuel Faessler, we called it. Warren Gatland, he's English now, not bothered. If you're Warren Gatland and you're watching him play, you would be bothered. He is a phenomenon. He's a freak athlete. I watched him from the stands at Murrayfield, and every time he got the ball, he scored off one touch on the short line going down and past Cameron Redpath, and the Scotland back line didn't see him coming. Every time he got the ball against Ireland, he made yards, he made meters. He's a cheat code. He's going to be a world-class. Do you go as far as saying that, he's like a Rico Ioane for the All Blacks, or one of these freaks of natures, like George North when he was in his pomp for Wales. But England have struggled, I think, in that back three to find a power back three player like that. Yes, you've got Elliot Daly, you've had your Johnny Mays, you've had Jack Noel, who you could argue is a power player as well, but he was out and out wheels. But I mean someone in traffic that can get you over the game line, off 9, off 10, staying out on his wing. I thought he was phenomenal. I thought he would stand out. But for me, the standout player was Ben Earl. The way in which he carried the turnovers in key moments, the fact that he was up against Josh van der Fleer, I see Ben Earl as a 7. But obviously Caelan Doris as well, who's seen as the best. I think I've called him the best 8 in the world. So phenomenal. Have I said phenomenal? And going into the game, I was thinking, how are England going to play? I thought in order to beat Ireland, it was going to have to be 8-man rugby or 8, 9, 10. So keep it in the pack, scrum, line-out drive, up and unders, the same way in which they nearly beat South Africa in the semi-final, the same way in which they got to the semi-final of the World Cup. And it was more than that. I think the way that they attacked, I mentioned from the off, the try in the corner for Ollie Lawrence, taking the ball to the line. They were very direct in their collisions. Mentioned George Furbank as well on that initial carry, but his first mindset was to run. So I think now, as an England fan or as an England player, you know in the back of your mind you've got the kicking game. Yes, it might suck the energy out of the Twickenham crowd. Yes, there might be a bit of heat in the media that isn't the way that you should play, but they know they've got that. Going back, World Cup against South Africa, and for the large parts of that. The evolution of their game, and I heard some stuff around what Johnny May was saying and what Ben Young's, two England greats, were talking about them not putting enough emphasis on attack. Well, you've put enough emphasis on attack against one of the best defence, or the number one, the second best team in the world. And that's what's happened as you've come out. They've stayed confident. They've all the way. And the thing that impressed me most is the fact that they were losing the game 22-20 in the dying minutes of the match, and they've managed to come back. And that was because they held onto the ball. And I go back to when Danny Kerr put that little grubber through. That was the old England. That was a mistake, obviously rectified off the back of it. And it was brilliant. I do wonder what they do now. Like, Marcus Smith looked brilliant when he came on. George Ford, very good. You've got Finn Smith. Owen Farrell's in the crowd. I wonder what he's thinking as he's watching it unfold. But the speed and the precision in which they played at was mightily impressive. So big shout out to England. You must be buzzing as fans. And again, without being the hype man, I called it before. I think you look at the profile of the team, you look at what you brought on in Theo Dan, Chandler Cunningham South as well. I don't know why I struggled to say his name. Chandler Cunningham South. It's a cool name, but he looks injured, unfortunately for him. The fact that Ethan Roots wasn't even in the squad. You've got George Martin, who's just come back in. You've got Ollie Chesa. We mentioned Benno. You've got Sam Underhill. You know, you think of the players that aren't playing as well. You've got Finn Smith, who wasn't in today, who's been brilliant for Northampton. You've got Freddie Stewart, who wasn't in the squad as well. The strength and depth of the layers. I thought Joe Marler played really well when he came on as well. The layers of quality coming through for England now is really, really good. I'm not just calling it on one game, but that's a massive game. You know, Ireland wanted to go back-to-back in the Grand Slam. They went in that game as clear favourites. Everyone was talking about it. People were laughing at me when I was saying that I think England could win. The Rugby Pod comments blew up when I was saying that there's going to be an upset this weekend. Well, who's laughing now? Not necessarily me, but I think all the England players and the England staff. I don't think the England staff will be laughing. I imagine the stress and the pressure they've been under. But this is a big congratulations to England. And the England fans, you deserve it. You absolutely deserve it. So enjoy. You can comment. You can interact. We'll see how these go. But it's a day for England. Ireland have got Scotland at home. Oh, God, there's going to be a backlash next week. I can't even work out how the Six Nations are going to unfold. I mean, it looks like Ireland are still going to win it, right? If they beat Scotland next week, I think it's as clear as that. But it's going to go down to the final week in terms of where the rankings are going to be. So enjoy. Thanks very much for watching.